Hello Cosmonauts, have you heard of Hyperliquid? It's one of the most understated projects, yet it's making history by becoming the largest crypto application, breaking records as the fastest blockchain to reach $1 billion in TVL, and propelling its blockchain into the top 10 in less than a year. Hyperliquid has attracted over 60% of all USDC from the Arbitrum L2. And all this without any marketing or venture capital backing, just a blockchain dedicated to a single application, a passionate community, and a team of 5 people working with their own resources. Previously professional market makers, the team found no perp platform that met their needs after the fall of FTX. So, they decided to create their own platform. In this video, we'll uncover what's behind this project that's sweeping in like a hurricane. We'll talk about their airdrop and tokenomics, which reveal a lot about the true intentions of these mysterious developers who have left their competitors far behind. Is it still possible to benefit from this project, and will they crash as quickly as they rose? That's what we're about to explore in this video. These former market makers could have leveraged their tools and expertise to profit from the platform they were building. For instance, they could have charged fees for their market-making vault or simply collected platform fees like most projects without tokens do. However, what sets Hyperliquid apart and explains its success is the cypherpunk ethos the ecosystem has largely lost. They excluded themselves from the airdrop, have never taken a cent from their platform, and directed everything toward the user community. This approach quickly made Hyperliquid the most traded and efficient platform on the market. Hyperliquid's success might never have materialized if the market shares in perp trading platforms weren't so fragmented and user-oriented approaches so scarce. Hyperliquid has capitalized on this momentum, distributing points at a time when massive VC unlocks on dYdX remind users why they prefer trading on Hyperliquid. The perp order book market thrives on the flywheel effect. Volume attracts volume. Currently, Hyperliquid holds 50% of the market share and boasts the highest growth among perpetual platforms. Dominance in this space will inevitably trend toward an 80-20th Pareto distribution, 80% of the market share for the top player and 20% for the competitors. For the developers, this sacrifice is more than worth it. They clearly understand the unique opportunity before them, choosing to give as much as possible to the community rather than venture capitalists. It's also important to note that Hyperliquid operates without any marketing at all. The founder limits himself to just one interview per month to provide updates on progress, while the Twitter account is used to announce new crypto listings and updates. There's no budget for a marketing-driven acquisition channel. The best founders understand that the strongest marketing tool is the community itself, and it's clear that this is where Hyperliquid has invested. And some critics argue that this doesn't represent real adoption or a genuine community, claiming that users are only there for the points and the airdrop. However, these points wouldn't hold much value if the token behind them lacked worth. The only way users can truly assess this is through the quality of the product. The points are not magical, nor are they a groundbreaking concept. They're simply a tool to measure proof of work. Proof of work, after all, is the foundational tool of crypto, first introduced with Bitcoin in 2009. Hyperliquid isn't using proof of work to build a currency, but rather a decentralized finance platform. To contribute to the platform's proper functioning, users must participate in filling the order book, whether through market making or trading. That said, I agree that point-based systems can be misused by some projects. Unlimited distribution periods, fixed rules that can be easily farmed by bots, fees flowing back to developers, and point multipliers for nonsensical missions or partnerships often exploit users. Many projects abuse this tool, but even a cursory look reveals that none of this applies to Hyperliquid. Just as Bitcoin's proof of work reduces rewards over time, it's normal for an incentive system to decrease payouts over time. Hyperliquid has followed a similar model, reducing proof of work reward emissions gradually. They distributed points before launching a token and plan to continue distributing rewards with their token over a longer period. This allocation, while greater than what was given out during the airdrop, will be spread over a much longer time. This means your proof of work will yield diminishing returns over time. Now let's talk about the airdrop. This will help you understand how to participate in future rewards, as outlined in their tokenomics. Well, as you've probably gathered, Hyperliquid implemented a point system to reward users who actively participated in and contributed to the platform. Whether you were trading, filling the order book, or providing liquidity to the market-making vault, All of these activities helped improve Hyperliquid's application while earning you points. The system wasn't fixed and was kept somewhat opaque, which prevented bots from farming points more effectively than regular users. A total of 31% of all tokens were distributed and immediately unlocked, proportional to the number of points users held. At its core, the mechanism is fairly standard. You participate in the application, earn points, and then receive an airdrop. Many projects operate similarly. dYdX, for example, also allows you to earn tokens in exchange for your activity. But what sets Hyperliquid apart, as you've probably already realized, is its tokenomics. Proof of work is great, but if the majority of tokens aren't distributed to the workers, it defeats the purpose. The right distribution tool is there, but it accomplishes nothing if it isn't used properly. That's what makes Bitcoin so remarkable. Its distribution is 100% egalitarian. No Bitcoin was reserved for any specific address, not even for its creator. Well, it's true that Satoshi holds 5% of Bitcoin, and not because he controls 5% of the mining industry, but because he benefited from the initial token distribution, which was very high and had very few participants. The founders of Hyperliquid, however, made the choice to eliminate any first-mover advantage. They passed up the equivalent of 5% of the tokens, but instead allocated themselves an amount equal to 5 times that 5%, divided among the 5 team members who started Hyperliquid. While not as perfect as Bitcoin's model, it's more than fair given that Hype isn't designed to be a currency. A universal unit of account like Bitcoin demands 100% equality of opportunity. That said, Hyperliquid comes closer to Bitcoin's and Ethereum's fair launch models than any other project in the space today. And so what are the tokenomics of the Hype token? 70% of Hype tokens are reserved for the community as incentives for proof-of-work participation. Of this, 31% were directly distributed proportionally to point holders. Users who didn't claim their airdrop on time forfeited their allocation, which was added to the 38.8% allocated for future emissions. This means that approximately 40% of all Hype tokens are still available for farming in the coming months and years. While further details about farming methods and timelines are not yet available, it's safe to assume that trading and market making in the vault will be required. If you want to farm Hype with reduced trading fees, you can use the affiliate link in the description to get a 5% discount. If you already have an account, use the code AK194. If you don't, simply use the link in the description. 6% of Hype tokens are allocated to the Hyper Foundation. While this percentage is relatively small, there's nothing particularly notable about it. 23.8% of Hype tokens are reserved for current and future contributors. As mentioned earlier, the number of tokens allocated to the project's founders is 2 to 3 times smaller than what's typical for similar projects. Additionally, part of this allocation is reserved for future contributors. Most of these tokens are locked for 1 year and will be progressively released until 2028. 0.3% of the total supply is allocated for community funding. Lastly, 0.012% of the total supply is allocated to the HIP2 pool, which is an on-chain strategy forming part of the block transition logic. This strategy is order book-based and entirely decentralized, with no operator control. It is designed for token launches and price discovery. By contrast, HIP1 is inspired by the well-known Uniswap v2 AMM model, enabling the creation of spot assets with a fungible and predefined supply. The impressive thing about these standards is that they both leverage Hyperliquid's order book. According to me, the great strength of Hyperliquid is that they haven't made a single mistake. They take the best that exists and place it perfectly. The user experience is unique, yet it consists solely of common components like AMM, order books, and the Tendermint consensus. However, they've been ahead of the curve with their generalist market-making vault. The intelligent assembly and gradual market launch have been key to Hyperliquid's success, and they continue this by leveraging one of the most widely used standards, the EVM. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to do something with it that no one else has been able to. You already know how to take advantage of the airdrop with reduced fees, but you might be wondering what the token is for. It's important to understand that Hyperliquid is a sovereign and independent blockchain. To secure all its operations, it cannot rely on Ethereum or any other chain. Hyperliquid needs decentralization and a way to punish malicious operators. For this, it uses the freely available Cosmos technologies, such as the Tendermint consensus for decentralization, which also enables proof of stake to slash bad actors. The HYPE token is thus a staking cryptocurrency that determines the voting power of the consensus validators. You'll need to delegate your HYPE to validators, ideally not just the first ones you see. In return for securing the network, stakers will be rewarded with transaction fees from the upcoming HyperEVM applications. Various applications not natively offered by Hyperliquid can also be built, such as stablecoin platforms, bridges, lending and borrowing money markets, prediction markets, as well as social and NFT applications. And HYPE stakers will also benefit from its perp market. For example, with similar fees, dYdX redistributes 50% of its fees to its vault and 50% to stakers. Hyperliquid already has over $212 million in its vault, with an APR of over 30%. Something like 60–70% of the fees being allocated to stakers seems realistic. Unlike many proof-of-stake blockchains, Hyperliquid won't need inflation to incentivize staking, which is the dream of all POS chains, generating sufficient revenue while limiting dilution. Hyperliquid doesn't stop there because it's deflationary right from day one. The 0.012% HYPE in the HYPE2 pool burns the fees it earns through market making. With an estimated annualized HYPE burn of 0.32% for now, HYPE will become increasingly rare and rewarding over time. This is both impressive and historic for a token that has just launched. It would take too long to cover everything in this video, such as the ecosystem of exciting applications on the horizon, my thoughts on competition with dYdX, weaknesses like the lack of decentralization and transparency, and finally, how Hyperliquid will highlight Tendermint application-specific blockchains. This will help us identify the next potential gems. So to make sure you don't miss any of this, I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon. Take care, Cosmonauts.